So welcome everybody. We're in another office hours. We had a little bit of a discussion prior to this meeting that I chose to be off recording because it was, again, covering some of the material that's actually course material. So any of the things that I'm sharing in these office hours that are recorded are the integration quest material or some of the material I've created just for coaching people and studying. And so that's what we're going to continue to do. You're going to see a lot of that. But the exciting news is this. Originally, when I set up to do this, I promised 2 weeks of studying in office hours, and then it would have concluded on Friday to wrap it up with a study group session, and that's going to be held also. That's through our normal study group through Integration Quest with an exam prep session. So that is happening on Friday at 12 o'clock. But I wanted to share with you that I decided to do this because I'm building out our partner environment with Integration Quest with live assets that we can come in and show people and do different things, which will allow other instructors that are teaching these classes, whether they're Salesforce or Integration Quest classes, to review some of these things live and go through them. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. And I thought I'd take you along with the journey. There's still so much to cover that I could do a fast track and cover some of them. But if you want to be hands-on with them, there's so much more to cover, not only just what we're doing the life cycle of the API right now, but even in the security part of encrypting our passwords, of adding TLS context so that we are using HTTPS. So there's various things like that that I need to build out in this environment. In addition to that, there's also things like Flex Gateway that I need to build out in this environment. So I've opted to go ahead and continue beyond Friday. And if you would like to, I'll send the invites. If for any reason you don't want to be, bothered with an invite, or you're good to go, then just let me know. Send me that information privately. If you want to continue getting the invite so that it's available and you'll have access to the videos, give me a green check so I know you're on board with that, and it'll just further prepare you for the exam as far as that's concerned. But if you, so that's the good news, is we're not stopping on Friday. If you want to continue on with us beyond that, I'll do the invites. I'm going to target the time frame. I'd like to try to stay with the 12 to 1:30, but as you know, I did have some conflicts. So, Damien, that's cute. Thank you. Good deal. Sometimes I have to modify it a little bit, or like today there was, some things that were occurring that were out of my control that I just had to, modify our time frame. So if you can just bear with me on some of that, I'm off project. I didn't think I'd be as busy as I am, but it is good that things are busy. So yeah. All right, great. That sounds great. Very good. And like I said before too, if you have requests, let me know. We definitely are going to, I had pressure on myself somewhat to try to get us to be ready, get you all to be ready for the exam by Friday. But there's still so many things that need to be, if you want the hands-on experience to really go over in more detail, like the object store, like using the REST connector for the object store. So that's our goal here, where we're currently at on this process is we have our 2 APIs, right? These are good to go. We are going to we're going to complete out our process for the patient, or the get flights. Oh, no, not that one. Yeah, actually, it's this one. We are building out this implementation. So we've got 2 different system APIs that we're working with. Okay. And between these 2 system APIs, one of them, when we go to manage it, one of them we're going to do a proxy, and the other one we're going to do a basic endpoint. So we're going to move forward from here, get both of them deployed to Cloud Hub, manage them, complete out that part of the life cycle so that those are good to go. Now, our state application that I'm building out, that I'm so excited about it, but it's really cool because we want to build this out to where we're using the object store in all of the different possibilities. One is going to be just built into our process API. So we're going to build those out in our process API. Okay, so we're going to have our object store in our application without a global element. Then we're going to also create another flow that uses a global element for the persistent object store and then the non-persistent or transient object store. Okay, we're going to deploy them on our servers. We're going to deploy them in Cloud Hub, see how they behave in both environments, and then also the queuing mechanisms. We'll be doing the queuing mechanisms too. So we need to complete out our system APIs first, and then we'll be able to use them in our process API. Okay, and like I told you, we are we're using the American flights kind of loosely right now. Our whole scenario is that we have patients, we have EMS patients, and whether it's a emergency situation or a planned transport for that patient, we're going to actually be using the American Flights API to book them a flight to transport them. Now, I will tell you, I've got my assistant, who is also building, we've already started designing a EMS transport database. Okay, so we've already been in the brainstorming phases of that. And he's on the call, so you can, RJ is actually a retired paramedic, and he is on board with MuleSoft now with our team, and he is assisting to build out this database of different ambulance services. So it'll actually be more meaningful when this is done. And so I'll get you privy to that system API when it's ready, but we're using the American Flights one for now, because it's in the self-paced course. So it's okay if I use that one, but B, it would help us use, something that's already established. And you've already built out the patient's records, or we're about to complete that. And Mark, I'll get you all the lowdown on both of these so that you'll know American Flights, but I'll also get this one for you too.
All right. Sounds good.
And can also get you into the partner account as well. Ethan, that goes for you too. So
great. Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, as we are creating these two system APIs, then we'll jump into our process APIs, and that's where the state processes, or that's where we're going to really be working with the state features or objectives. All right. So let's go ahead and let me close some of these extra things down that I have open. Where we left off last, that's American Flights. Let me get the right guys open here. Okay, so where we left off was we had created our flow to get the patients, right? And so now we're going to come in, and this is where we're able to get all patients. We're transforming over. There we go. And then we will, come on. We'll go ahead and make a copy of this, and we will create the code or I should say the flow that will get patients by ID. Okay. By patient ID. I'm going to let it resolve the metadata here. And in the meantime, let me bring this other one up too. All right. Yeah, I don't know why it's taking so long to resolve the metadata. I'm going to double check my global element here. Because sometimes if the metadata takes a while to load, there might be something going on with your connection. So let me test this connection, make sure that that's behaving. And it could be, yeah, it's good. All right, that's good. It could also be network slowness. Yeah, because hey, there, it just started to come through. All right, I feel better now. That was a little concerning. Okay, so we should see, another thing I'm going to fix too, I'm going to get out there and fix the city and state too. So there's some cleanup on some of this, but at any rate, we're going to go ahead and get our other application or our other flow completed. Okay. So to do that, let's go ahead and select, does everyone that was following along, I know some of you are observing, but everyone that was following along, did you get your flow for the get all patients completed? Give me a green check if you're hands-on. Okay. And if anybody needs, I can share, when we complete this out, I'll share this jar file with you. Okay. All right, so we're going to select the flow itself, okay, so that we see down here the flow name. So select the flow. You can do hotkeys to do this. Generally, I just go ahead and go up to the Edit tab in the upper left. Edit, copy it, click in the canvas, and then go back to Edit and do Paste. Okay, it'll create a copy of it. And so on the copy, we're going to change that over to get patient by ID. Okay, get patient by ID. And when we have the all patients, I understand, Sandra, no worries. Okay, and so in the configuration for the select, we're going to change the name of that to patient by ID. Patient by ID. And then down here in the SQL query text, we're going to add some code here. And it's going to be capital where ID equals :ID. Okay, I'll put that in the chat. We just added this line here because now we're going to be using this to actually search for our particular patient that we want to, that we send in. Okay. And that patient ID is going to be coming in as a URI parameter. Okay, it's coming in as a URI parameter. So in the bottom section down here, we also want to click on the input parameters, click that function key on, and paste in what I just put in the chat, which is that ID that you're going to look for here is going to be coming from the attributes URI parameters. ID. Okay, so ID, and it'll go out on the database and search for that particular patient. All right, we'll go ahead and save this. Let me know if I start moving too quick. Okay. The transform message should be fine. That does not need to change. And we're logging the payload. And you know what? We really should not put patient information in our logs. So I do feel conflicted. Let's go ahead and change this from payload since it's got patient data. It's kind of a HIPAA violation. Let's change this over to let's just do like a status on this. Process complete. Okay, and put it as a literal string, and we'll also put here process complete. We should have what we're doing. We'll do process complete dash all patients. Okay. That way we're doing more of a status check on this. And then we'll also go down to the logger, and likewise, this one's going to be process complete. Hey, let's see, this one is going to be patient by ID. That way we know what was completed, and copy the name, and we'll put that as a literal string here. Now there's advanced other things we can do. We can include the correlation ID and all that, but that is going to exist in our logs anyway. And let's save that. There, that's better. All right. So there's one more step that we need to do. We've been creating these private flows. Why are they private? Who can tell me why they're private?
You don't have an event source.
Right. So they have to be accessed from within this application itself, because they don't have an event source here. There's no way to trigger them. So we're going to come down to our flows that we have in our interface, and we're going to flow reference from our interface over to our implementation. So locate the get patients, and it has a logger here. We're going to delete that logger. Okay, so it should be the get patients. Now you'll see the other get patients by ID. That's going to be the next one we do. But in the get patients, we're going to bring a flow reference over. We're going to configure that flow reference and look for the get all patients flow. Copy it while it's highlighted and paste it in so that the display name is going to show in the flow itself. Okay, now it should flow reference right over to the other flow, and we're going to delete this transform message in the get patients by ID and the logger. And we'll bring the flow reference here. Same thing, we're going to go down to the get patient by ID. And again, copy for the naming for the display name. And save. Okay. Now the other flows, we can complete those later date if you would like. This database will accept a post. Please don't wipe it out though. Behave if you post a record out there. But the credentials we're using for this does allow us to do a post, a delete, and a put. So FYI. But we're going to leave them as they are right now. It'll just, I think, return back our message that it was successfully deleted. That's just a stub. So it'll still work. It'll just give you a message. Okay. All right. So this is ready to test. Let's right click and run this and test it out. We'll just run it in regular mode for right now. Okay. And while that is coming up, bring Advanced REST Client up, and we will go ahead and get our request ready. So it's going to be localhost. Who can tell me what the URL is going to be on this?
Host 8081/API.
API?
/get all patients. Get
Okay.
patients by ID.
Okay.
Patient.
Okay. It should be a get. here, right?
Yeah.
But we only send in patients
Slash.
when we want all of them, right?
No, it's not.
Correct? Because we want to remember what our specification looks like.
Slash what? ID.
Okay. In the patient, our regular endpoint is going to be, as we can see, the patients. In our get by ID is going to be patients with some kind of a number of that patients at the end there,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So it'll be either the endpoint patients for the get all, or it'll be the patients with a URI parameter at the end to get a certain patient. Okay. All right. Should have deployed. So the first one we're going to send in is the patients. And yes, there is a precursor of that API. That's because we're using the API kit router. And that's what's used and identified as the from the API kit router. That exists as a generic path. If you look at the listener, you'll see in the configuration, that's where that comes from. Okay. So we'll send that in. You should get back patients, right? And notice there is a patient ID here. That is a real patient ID off the database. Go ahead and copy that. Or at least put /17000, or you can choose one of the others. And when you do that, you only get the one patient back. If yours did not work like that, let me know and we'll check it out and see what's going on. But otherwise, you should be able to automatically do the get patients or get patients by a particular ID. And we can do the delete.
Did you run the interface or the implementation?
We are directly communicating with the interface right now. And there is no listener here, so we could not and are not going to be using, you know, directly to these other flows. That make sense? So we're actually coming in, when we send in this request, in this case, we're coming into this listener. The API kit router says, oh, this is a get by ID. So down below, let me stop there. Down below, we come down here. And we see the get patients by ID. So that's what, if I had sent this in, there we go. If I had sent that in, then it's going to route me down to this, get patients by ID, and then it's going to pass me over to here and select that patient by a particular ID and give us back just that patient information. If we were doing get all patients, it would route to here because there's nothing on the source side that makes it a private flow. Make sense? Okay, so we should have tested our flow successfully. I want to go ahead and stop the project because we're about to deploy this. But a few things I want to point out here. People ask me all the time, and I've seen it happen as well. Why don't we just go ahead and build these flows out here? Why don't we just go ahead and add the processors here? Who can tell me? Why do we have this as a separate XML? Why don't we just add them over here? Who can tell me?
This can be deployed to any server, just modifying the YAML, and the interface can be built separately.
Right. We want to decouple the responsibility of the specification or the interface versus our implementation. Okay. So I know you were saying you could deploy one to another. Really, these two are going to be deployed together. Okay, they're part of the same application. This system API is part of the same system API. So they're going to be deployed together. However, if we make changes to our specification, like let's say we add an additional endpoint. I don't know, is my audio cutting out for anyone else?
No, it sounds okay.
Okay. Damien, it's because of the cold in Florida. Are you freezing?
Yeah, it's super cold out here. I think it was maybe 70, might be 74 now.
Oh, is it? That's
Yeah, I need
warm.
to get some hot cocoa.
Okay. That's warm though.
Yeah, I'll burn some marshmallows.
Everyone's seeming to think the sound is okay, so it may be on your end, Damien,
Yep,
for that.
as usual. I'll figure it out.
All right, sorry. So let's say that we needed to make changes to our specification. All right. So if I go into Design Center and I need to, make some changes that are going to impact how the API kit router will render this interface. Okay, let's say I, add additional fields, or I add another endpoint, or I decide to remove an endpoint. Okay. And in any of those cases, it's going to have an impact on it's going to have an impact on the way the API kit router is rendered, right? Because it'll scaffold out our flows. It'll scaffold out our flows in our interface. So when that happens, if you have a bunch of processors here in your interface, now it won't bother them. It'll, because I've done it to see, it doesn't bother it won't mess it up, but it's just better to have your implementation set apart from your interface, especially if you needed to, let's say, we needed to remove, one of the endpoints or change the way it processes. That would not impact your implementation. So best practices denotes that it's best to have your interface code, in a separate XML from your implementation. But it's all the same application, and it will all get deployed as a single application that we'll use. Okay. And other elements are that if we did delete an endpoint in our specification, and like, let's say we came out here and we were going to delete the put. We wanted to change it maybe to a patch, or maybe it was a patch and we wanted, but whatever the case may be, we wanted to delete that endpoint. When we delete it and rescaffold it, it's still going to exist here in our interface. So you would have to come out here and remove it from your interface. And a new one would appear if you had added one. So if you add any changes, it will update them. But if you delete an endpoint, you have to update this as well. Like the example was we were renaming some of the endpoints. And so in that process, we had to delete the previous naming convention. Okay. But at any rate, that isolates and keeps your backend logic separate here. So that's the biggest portion of it, is having it organized. All right. So we are ready to go ahead and, oh, I did want to show you one other thing. Right click and run our project again. And remember, in our life cycle, we saw that there are different places where the API console is. Okay, we see the API console here in the Design Center. We also see the API console in Exchange. when we go to a given asset, okay, when we click on these endpoints, yeah, you can come out of there. There we go. Okay, we see them here as well. And we can send in those requests as part of the API console or referred to as the API console. But we also have it as part of the API kit router and the system that gets set up. It also sets up a console. Okay, very much like the API kit router, but it's the API console that when the application is deployed over here on the left, we're going to see that open console. It'll pop up where the API console is live. So we can click on this and bring this up, and we have another API console here as well. And you can send the GET request. You can send the request from here, from this browser. Okay, send in the GET using, don't use the example ID. That's not correct. The live IDs are listed in our Get All Patients. You can see them there. Okay, so now we can double check. So you could use this also as a way to double check the functionality of your application. And you can also see the full URL up here as well. Okay, so wanted to be sure to share that with you. That is another place where you'll see the API console. All right, so we're ready to deploy this. Go ahead and stop it from running. And we're going to right click on our application name, come down to any point platform, and go ahead and deploy to Cloud Hub. I wonder why it's not picking up my info from before. Let me grab my login credentials here. I have too many usernames and passwords to keep up with. 1 second. All right, so we'll go ahead and get this deployed to dev. Yeah. And let me grab my username or password here. 1 second. You'd think I'd have them memorized. Nope. Nope. Okay. So let me make sure I'm in the right environment. You want to deploy this one to dev. All right. Once in here, I don't have a lot of options. I don't think on mine. Oh, I do. I've got more options than I thought I had. I'm going into a shared space. This is another thing you'll also be privy to. I am going to create a private space also. So there'll be some additional things there. So let's go ahead, and the naming convention should be fine of your application. And just one replica for this for right now, replica size. And we're going to go with the rolling update. We're not using the object store in this case. We'll go ahead and deploy our application. Okay. So this one is, and remember also too, what we talked about is how it does go through the build process. You do see that. If you were to deploy this to Cloud Hub 1, we would not see that, but it's part of the deployment process to build it out. And then you'll also see it if you watch the logs. You're going to see that it is creating it as an asset in Exchange. And it's an application type asset that you don't see from the regular panel, right? You don't see that from the regular user interface. You only see that if you change the type by changing the type over to application. All right, it's downloading the repos. So we can see several things happening here on this. Uploaded to Anypoint Exchange. Okay. So we can see that it has uploaded. Publishing asset. And once this is completed, we can go to, yeah, there it goes. It just bounced. Build with success. Okay. And we can go ahead and go to Anypoint platform. You will see that it is running in a, that it's applying the configuration. We can view the status here also and see that it is in its deployment process. Sometimes if you mouse over that, you can see what's really happening behind the scenes right now. The pod is initializing. It'll eat into insufficient memory. So you can see some things that are like, oh goodness, what's going on? But really it's on its way. It changed to starting now. So you can watch that. You'll even sometimes see that it has failed or initialization has failed, but it will regroup. We can also switch over to the logs. Okay. And being it's a Cloud Hub 2 deployment, our logs are here. Okay. Our logs are here. Okay. If we look back at our settings, go back to settings and view status, should be getting pretty close. Yeah, I'm still having a failed connection there. Okay. So anyway, as this is going through the process, we are going to also build out managing our APIs. So we'll get this in place, then we'll double check it, make sure it's good. In the meantime, we're done with Studio for right now. You can go ahead and close it for the time being. Okay, we'll go ahead and close Studio. So we came out of the life cycle of deploying and building our application, testing it locally. Now it's going into Cloud Hub 2. Let's go back to settings. And it is successfully running. So it's mine's in a running status. All right. That is good. Okay. Understand or not. Okay, so again, we've got our two APIs. Both of our APIs are going to be managed. We're going to do managed APIs, right? So they're both in Exchange. We've got our patient records and our American flights. Trying to decide which one I'm going to put as I think we're going to do the American flights proxy. And then patient records, we will do as a embedded. Okay. So if you remember from our chart, let me grab our Lucid chart here. Okay. So if you remember this, we talked about proxy versus embedded. Okay. And so we're going to go through, and both of these options are in the Mule runtime as the Mule gateway. Okay. And we're going to go through the process of the proxy with the American flights And then we'll do the patients using the auto discovery. Okay. So let's check to see if this has, which it should have deployed, or I should say we'll test out the endpoint. So in our public endpoint up here in the upper right, we'll go ahead and copy that. And I want you to put that in your snippet file so that we have it handy. Okay, because we're going to need that. Oh, come on. Okay, and let's go ahead and click on that link also. And now we're seeing that endpoint up here, but we do need to add /API/patients. Okay, that's our path. We need to add that to the end of our URL. And let me give this to those of you that are in observation mode. And you can go ahead and just put that in a browser tab. There you go. Just put that in a browser tab. It should open up and you should get the list of the patients. Okay. So these patients, this is all of the patients on the database. And then if we want to narrow it down to just one, choose a patient ID and put that at the end. Okay, and then you should just get that one patient. Very much like we already did. But now it has a unique URL that's available globally, right? Available all over the world. And it is not secured. I gave you that URL. You can access this. You don't need any credentials. You don't need a client ID or a client secret. And that's not good, is it? So we need to secure this. This is an unsecured endpoint. So there are secured endpoints and unsecured endpoints. So again, this is a secured, or this is an unsecured endpoint, but it does work. So we wanted to test it. We also wanted to now go into managing the endpoints. Let me, I'm thinking, yeah, this is the one that's running. We want to go ahead and I think we're going to go the route of on here. Like I said, we're going to do the proxy with the mule with the flights. So we need to deploy now that in a case of a proxy, it could be a Mule app or a non-Mule app. In our case, we are using a Mule app. Okay. This one, we're going to do the basic or embedded endpoint. And that one, like I said, we're going to do with patients. So we're lined up well with that. Okay. So we're going to shift gears now. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Runtime Manager. And now we need to deploy the American Flights application. Okay. So we're going to deploy the American Flights application. I'm going to get that to you. Let me bring that up in here. Did I put it in this one? Let me see. 1 second. I prepared in advance for this. And let me locate it. Did I put it on my desktop? Yeah, that's not the right one. All right, hang on a second. I for sure thought that I had that in my downloads, but apparently not. Okay, 1 second. we'll have it for you in just a minute. All right, I will put this jar file in the chat as soon as I have my fingers on it. Is it that one? Nope. I promise you, I did see this before we started because I wanted to have it handy. But well, goodness. All right, take a mini break. I need to make sure I get the latest version of this for you. Because they did change the database details. Mini break time. Right. Making progress over here, folks. Oh, no. For sure, I wrote that in here. Give me just 1 minute, folks. I gotta step away for 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that. Dogs were carrying on. Also too, I found what I was looking for as well. And it is not letting me put it in the chat. That means it's got to be in a shared folder somewhere. All right, so let me drop this in that shared folder we were using before, and I will give you the URL for this. Because one we actually want to deploy with is this Training for American version 2. And I'll put that in the shared folder and share that out once again. All right, see if you can locate this. Let me. There we go. Yeah, I can't get, I've tried to move it into the chat, Sandra, but it is not allowing me to put a jar file in the chat, which is kind of weird. Thought that, oh, now it worked. I must have had it open or something. Okay, now it's working. I tried to drop it in the chat before, but at any rate, it's in the chat now. Okay. So it's loading. You won't see it yet. And this application is, like I said, from the self-paced course for the American flights. It's still uploading. So we're going to deploy our application. And then we're going to manage this API. Now, to do the proxy, you have to have the application already deployed. Okay. To do the basic or embedded, it doesn't have to be deployed yet, but we are going to, we're going to use, you'll see the process that we take over here. So for this one, we do need to have our application running. Then we're going to manage that API, and you have to have the URL for the proxy. Okay. So you should have the jar file there. Let me get my jar file inside of my VM. Okay. Let's see if this is going to behave. Oh, yeah, it's working. Okay, that's good. All right, so bringing mine inside the VM. Once you have yours downloaded, and those of you that are following along, we're going to go ahead and get this deployed. And then we're going to manage. So we're working on the American Flight System API at this point. And then tomorrow we'll pick up. Now, tomorrow we're scheduled at this same time slot. Okay, tomorrow we're scheduled at 2. And then Friday is the where we will do the exam prep and go over overall all of the objectives. Then we'll get a game plan for next week. Next week is our process API. And that's where we'll be getting into state. Okay, we should have them both managed by tomorrow. And then that sets us up nicely to use both of these system APIs in our applications. Okay, in the process API. Okay, so let's name it. And this can be, the name of our application is going to be Training for American. And this will be a system API. And also put an identifier with your name, your initials and the date stamp. Okay. And not that you have to have a unique identifier in CloudHub 2, but to help you remember when it was created. In my case, I want it identified so that other people coming into this platform account will know when it was created, what it was used for, who did it, kind of a thing. But you'll notice we got everything green checked here. Deploying to the shared space, that's fine. And we're going to add our application file and choose the file. You'll upload the file. Go locate where that file is. Okay. And then we'll leave the replica count and replica size the same. Again, remember, this is a rolling update. That's going to provide us with 0 downtime if we had if an app was already running. And we're not using Object Store here. We can go ahead and deploy our application. Choose file. Okay, let's take a look at it, Sandra. I'm not sure why it's doing that unless you're out of vCourse, which I don't know. Let's see. We shall see why. Okay. Okay, you've got to upload the file. Oh, I see. Wait, let's see. Share space. Why is it not letting you? I see it, Sandra. I don't know why it would be. Everything's green there. I wonder if use the slide out menu on the side so that this stays up. Go over to the upper left and use the slide out menu. Right click on that. And let's go to right click on access management. Yep, open a new tab. And go to that new tab. There you go. And let's go to runtime manager under subscription on the left, runtime manager. Yep. Well, you have vCourse. So that doesn't seem to be the problem. All right, that's good. Let's go to business groups. And let's go to ARC 730. Yep, just click the name of it on the left there. Yep. And let's scroll down a little bit. Okay. So we're going to be deploying to dev, and this is why. Dev does not have any, or this business group. Well, go back up for me. Let me go up a little bit.
You want me to check the environment?
Yeah,
Any vCourse have been allocated to this.
right. There's no vCourse allotted there at all. So we want to slide that out. We deployed in class, so didn't we?
Yes, I think I did.
Yeah, you don't need to do the design. Design is fine. Go ahead and.
I think design is my prod. I renamed it.
Oh.
How quick I go, Max?
Sure. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Save. But go back up to your okay. So you had you probably deployed the other stuff to Salesforce, your business group Salesforce. Click on the word business groups and that's actually a pathway at the top, very top. See where, yeah, there those hyperlinks, yeah. Yeah, actually click on the one that says business groups. Go back up to the top there.
This one?
Yes, yes. Okay, so you have the root of Salesforce, and then we built another business group under that. Yeah, so that's probably where you deployed the others, perhaps too. And this is maybe the first time you're using this business group under here, which is fine. That's fine to do. Let's go back to the runtime manager. Thanks, Mark. Great to see you. And in here, what I'm looking at is in the upper right, you're in the ARC 730 business group. That's good. And now it should let you,
Should I just refresh then?
yeah,
Okay.
try. Yeah, it may take your name away though.
Yeah, I copied it. Well, hopefully it worked.
Oh,
but
good.
yeah. Yeah. No, I still can't choose.
Why is it preventing you?
It's okay. I don't want to block everyone.
Yeah, I don't, the only other thing would be when it is going to expire. Check on the,
Sure.
go back to that other window or tab. And
Yeah,
let's go and see the runtime manager under subscription, runtime manager. And
yeah, I
what
have the one
date?
that's on your license.
It's still good till 2/5.
Mhm. Oh, no, actually, that's a temporary one. I thought
Yeah,
I have a 1-year license there.
yeah. So I do not know why it is preventing you to do that.
It's okay. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing.
It could be permission based. That would be the only other thing I would wonder, but your account is, you know, should have full permission. So I can't see why it would do that. We'll pause here for today. So just make sure your application is running. So what we want to do is, go to settings, check on the URL, go ahead and click on your public endpoint, add the /API/flights. And you should get back all the flights. We could add an ID at the end of that, just choose one of them. And you should just get back that single flight. And we will call it a day. Tomorrow, we're going to come in, same time, 2 o'clock, and we will manage both of these APIs in API Manager. Again, the first one that we're going to do is the American Flights one. We're going to do a proxy. And in there, we'll set that one up. And then we'll also do the embedded basic endpoint. Okay. So that is the game plan for tomorrow.